This is Roll for Crit, and we're here to give you a preview of Legion Champions of Valdyria, a brand new expandable card game that is going to be on Kickstarter from EGAD Games, in which players take on champions and multiple different characters that are going to be defending those champions to try to defeat a single opponent in normal gameplay in battle.
The game is played over rounds. Each round you will roll this die and see what your initiative is. Hopefully you roll higher than that. Whoever rolls the highest will be taking the first turn in the round. Whoever didn't will get one of these Aegis tokens to put on any character or champion they like, and that will allow them to spend it later on to re-roll one of their dice rolls. On your turn, you will choose to do either one of the following actions. You can either A, play a card to one of the 4 possible ranks it can go, depending on its level. B, use an action on a card, in which this action, you can do that once per round. You can do a full action, which requires them to spend the character, pretty much putting them sideways, whatever terminology you'd like to use there, without getting copyright sued, and do this said action. And you can also spend them to attack, in which you can do a melee attack, which means they can attack the next row up, or a range attack, which they can attack up the 2 rows up. So you can, depending on the character, some can do both, some can only do one. So you'll have to look at the character or champion and see what they can do. You will then roll a 20-sided die.
Ta-da!
And you will add any bonuses they have, very D&D-esque, and see if you're able to beat their defense. If you do, you're able to deal damage. Most characters have 1 health, so that's usually a killing blow. Some have 2. Most of the champions have 3. So you will keep going through that. You may then also pass, in which you will sort of just wait to see your opponent. If your opponent also passes, that ends the round, in which no more action to take. You actually go back and forth. This isn't like some Magic the Gathering, where you do all your stuff and end your turn.
So the way that these ranks work, each player is going to have 4 ranks, which are the rows in your battle line, essentially. You have the first rank here, your front one is rank number 1, then number 2, and so on. And you need to play characters into those ranks according to their level. So this level 1 character would start out in the level 1 rank, but they can move up and down. That's why you see some of them have different levels and different ranks, for instance. And you have to worry about the overall rule of ranks, which is that the rank directly behind another rank can never have more than that rank in front. So let's say, for instance, those 3 characters were killed immediately, and you can see now there are 2 here, and there's only 1 here. In order to fix that, one of these of the player's choice would have to move up to that rank. Now, when a character moves up a rank, they are spent, and if they were already spent and they had to move up, then they rotate again, and they are considered stunned, so it takes them longer to recover. So that's something that you have to take into account, and it's an important strategy. If you're the player who's making the attacks, you want to use that to get through and break through, most likely to their champion, who's probably going to be somewhere in the back, depending on how your game is going. You'll also have some other cards in hand that you can play in addition to characters. There are items that can be attached to characters. The item has a level, and that has to equal the character's level plus the rank they're in. It also has to match their class type, which is different from their faction, unless, in this instance, this is a classless item, so anybody can use that. The same rule goes for these event cards. You need to have a character in play that has the matching class, and these are generally one-offs. In this case, it's a react. They could be all kinds of different abilities, but you will play those as well on your turn as one of your commands that you can take. And so the game goes back and forth until one player's champion is defeated. You draw up to 5 cards in hand after each round, but otherwise you just keep playing until, like I said, somebody's knocked out. And that's essentially how it works. You can build your own decks, like we said. You could go with the standard ones. They recommend that players, you want to have multiple core sets, really, to build a full official deck, which is 50 cards, whereas these starter decks are only 35 cards, 36 if you including the champion, who always starts out in play. But yeah, this is, by the way, based on an older card game called Warlord, which was published by AEG CG for a while, is now out of print, and also, of course, takes a lot of influence from Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, the D20 system, very apparent. It's very much like that, where you are going after armor classes, seeing how much, whether you get through or not, and using spells and all that.
Yeah, they all have their own magic resistance or two that involves spell checks and stuff. But the two big things is one, the die, obviously. But the other big thing I think that's separated from a lot of other card games is the ranking system, because there's a lot more strategizing. For example, as you mentioned, like I might go for, I really want to kill off these 2 units or something, like if this guy was still back there, to force you to have to pull one of these guys up, because then you don't get to use it for another action, which is particularly strong if they have a lot of range guys back there, so you can sort of force the range up. Another thing is that you'll be playing the way to play spells isn't just simply like, I cast this spell. You actually have to choose a character to be able to cast it. For example, Flame Wall has the spell symbol for 4, so you need to have a spellcaster who has a 4 value to cast a spell for you, and it may cost them their full action. Sometimes it may just be an action, so you can still use them for other effects. So that's a big thing to also be taking apart, make sure you're within range of those spells for that kind of stuff. And also if they're high enough level, especially equipment too, you might be able to equip a stronger item to someone farther back. So that's another thing. That's definitely where the game sort of stands out compared to other ones I've played.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of the strategy definitely comes down to where do you put these guys and when do you move them, if at all. And then these Aegis tokens also are very have a lot of strategy behind them that is important, because you have to assign them to a specific character. So you're deciding, who do I want to dedicate that reroll to? And there are some cards that may grant you these tokens as well, outside of just the initial initiative roll. So those could be a big part of your strategy, depending on how your deck is built up and everything. It's essentially, like we said, like kind of a D&D-esque game meets kind of a more traditional dual style card game, but it's expandable, not collectible.
Right, and we should, in case you're curious, there are 5 factions. What a convenient number. And there's also, this core came with about, I think 4 to 5 champions for each faction, including 2 neutral guys. So plenty to mess around with to try to build different decks if you want to go more aggro, control, all the classics.
Yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch. There's a bunch of cards in here that we didn't get a chance to fully play around with either, but you can see some of their designs, and you can go onto the website. We'll check out, we'll put a link to the Kickstarter, of course, in the description to see more in detail what all the different cards do, all their abilities and their keywords, because there's a lot going on. So once again, the game is Legion, Champions of Valdyria. If I think I'm saying that correctly. You can check it out. Let us know what you think, if you're going to back this one, or if you have other opinions about it. Just tell us.
We'd also love to hear if you actually played the old card game that this is supposed to be a spiritual successor for, Warlords, I believe it was?
Warlord, yeah.
Neither of us have played it, so we can't really comment on that. We'd love to hear your guys' opinions on that.
Yeah, so thanks everybody, and I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Will.
And this was a Roll for Crit preview.
Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and support us on Patreon. That would make us happy.
Maybe the next video is the one where Jonathan does a silly dance.